This is the second part, really, in a series looking into what the lockdown has done to certain industries. Today we're focusing on hospitality. Now, this is kind of the big one, really, because this is the backbone, the underbelly, if you like, of what makes us all kind of tick. You know, nipping for a pint, having a bite to eat, going out for a late one with your friends, the coffee bar to the opulent restaurant, through to just taking the family out for Sunday lunch. It's the beating heart, really, I think, of a kind of civilized society, really. Going out and socialising, having something to eat and something to drink. And when that was spectacularly removed, a little bit of me died that day, because I thought, I am a user of hospitality. I think most people at some level are. Pubs, bars, restaurants, etc. I mentioned nightclubs. I'd also factor in events as well. I think we can put that in this discussion as well. Events fall into this. A huge industry worth tens of millions of pounds. Right now, that industry is worth a big fat zero, arguably more affected than the food and drinks venues in some cases. 0344 499 1000. So I want to throw this to you. If you're, there's so many prongs to this, and I think you'll understand where I'm coming from, because I think we all, as consumers, as people, whether you pop into, the casual cup of coffee that you like to sit to, even, you can go in and buy a coffee at the moment, but you can't sit down. So when you walk in, you notice all of those venues, they've got all their tables and chairs all stacked up in one corner. It just looks like they're ready to close. It's not that conducive, is it really, with your civilised experience of having a swift latte when you're out and about? And a pint, for that matter. I mean, you can't even get into those places now if you're in Tier 3. Even in a Tier 2. And again, I took umbrage with all that kind of made-up, invented mischief when people were saying, look, London's in Tier 3 now. See how they like it. They were rejoicing when the rest are... What? Do you know anybody rejoicing over COVID regulations? Don't be silly. Tier 2 was not a party either. You couldn't do much in Tier 2. It wasn't really worth going to the pub in Tier 2. There was no sense of there being anything particularly enjoyable about Tier 2, because you could, stand outside, freezing cold, with a bunch of mates. But you couldn't go inside with the same. There's all of these. It's just not a good place to be. So if this is your industry, whether if you're the owner of and I think of small businesses more than I think of the big chains. I mean, the big chains clearly have huge issues, and they employ lots of people. That's where the concern should really be. But you notice those big chains, their names get changed every now and again. 1 minute you've got a Café Rouge, then it's a Bill's, and then it's a Wagamama's, and it seems to be almost on a rotation. In some places, that seems to happen about 3 times a year. So whilst I have sympathy for the people who work for the big chains, I mean, I think in terms of, often, big private equity organisations own some of those bigger chains. The small businesses, the person that owns the pub, my local landlord, Ben, who owns our local, he's simply, had that little moment, that respite when we were open just before the second lockdown. And now where I am, it's Tier 3, so that's it, done, gone. And there he was. I remember talking about this on the radio at the time. He was working out his Christmas rota. And he had his bar manager in with him, and they were sitting there in a closed pub, knowing that they were going to be open next week, thinking, right, let's work this out, getting the staff ready. They had bookings ready to go. They were overbooked, of course, because they would have fewer tables if they thought they were going to be opening, and then suddenly, bang, Tier 3. Sorry, you're done and dusted. 0344 499 1000. How has the closing down of the hospitality sector affected you? Whether you are the owner of said, it could just be a little coffee bar. If you're the sort of greasy spoon, you can do your takeaways and stuff, but your bread and butter, to coin a phrase, is, having a good old busy clientele between 6:30 in the morning and, lunchtime. All that's gone. It's not quite the same thing. People don't tend to get a takeaway fry-up in the same way. So whether you own something like that, whether it is the coffee shop, the restaurant, the landlord, the manager of the nightclub, and not everybody, by the way, has been on furlough. And there's the problem here. There's lots of people in that industry are self-employed too. So if you're part of the self-employed, often referred to as the forgotten millions in this respect. 0344 499 1000. Where are you on this in terms of your job, your business, your livelihood. And I'd be kind of interested as well to just sort of explore where this story goes. Because so many of these places, we've sort of hit a tipping point now. Not all of these areas are going to be able to reopen. We've kind of gone past that. You had the ridiculous sight across the country when new tier systems kick in. I saw it down in London yesterday. So you've got all these places that have now got to throw away food and drink. Literally throw it away. So you've got wastage there. They're never going to get that money back. And one assumes they're still going to be charged for the food they purchased. But many simply will not survive. Many won't be able to withstand the restraints and the regulations any longer. The lockdown itself seemed preposterous. Once we got to about sort of June, we're all thinking, hang on, how long can this go on for? How long can Joe's Greasy Spoon or Meg's Cafe continue? How long can a Bill's or a Café Rouge carry on for? You've been shut for 2 months. A lot of businesses in that sector don't actually start to make any money anyway till, the last sort of 2 months of the financial year. So if you shave off those 2 months, then the best you're hoping for is breaking even. And even that's not particularly likely. I was talking to a guy the other day. He's got 4 businesses. So he's got 2 hairdressers and he's got 2 food outlets as well. Not all in the same place, I should add. And he's making money on none of them, on absolutely none of them, because he's just breaking even, because the whole thing's been closed up for 6 months. And then when he thought these food outlets are takeaway, so he can keep that going and he can still cut hair. But the restrictions mean that you can't do the same capacity. So that's just one example. I mentioned the other day about somebody who runs a small nursery at her house. I mentioned Jamie, who cleans carpets. He was telling me about his missus, who cuts hair. There's all these just ordinary jobs, just ordinary Brits trying to earn a crust as we go towards Christmas. And all of that just disappears. And if you're in food and beverage and that kind of area, you've absolutely been hammered, because everything about what you do is solely dependent on footfall and trade and individuals coming in, and your profit margins aren't particularly great even on a good day, and here you are closing up your business. And I really do believe that it underpins a nice society when you can stop off. I know we've got coffee shops everywhere these days. We never used to have any. They're all over the flipping place. You can't move for coffee shops. But just for stopping up, a bite to eat. Is there anything more symbolic and totemic of what we are as people than meeting up with friends and breaking bread? Just that entire imagery is so central to what makes us tick as humans. All gone, just disappeared. And some of it will never reopen. So I want to speak to you if that's your neck of the woods, if that's your job, your trade, your bread and butter, your business. You own the business, whether you work in it, manage it. From nightclubs to cafes, from bars to the good old British boozer. All of these places could not have been hit any harder if you tried. And I see this genuinely as a kind of dual problem, because you have the issue that those companies are either on their knees or they're completely dead and they're never going to come back. But then it's just the missing aspect from our lives, just the missing bit, that idea of the kind of the network, the socialising, the popping in for a cup of tea into a cafe, gone. A good old British fry-up, gone. A nice pork pie and a pint, gone. Sitting down with your friends to celebrate a birthday, gone. Having it off royally at midnight because you think, I know what, we're taking a club, gone. Some of it will come back. It's going to take a lot of time. Some of it is dead.